You ever hear a sound so wrong it makes your skin crawl? Not loud. Not even dangerous, exactly. Just wrong. That's what started it for me, the sound. Not the darkness, not the blood, not even the thing I saw floating under Dock 12. No, it began with a noise I can still hear when it's too quiet at night. I worked maintenance at the Rustwater Seaport for 5 years. Night shift. It was the kind of job nobody wants unless they've already run out of options or screwed up something big. For me, it was both. Rustwater wasn't some busy, industrial megaport. It was a small, out-of-the-way freight harbor about an hour east of Portland, Maine. Mostly local shipments, timber, scrap, the occasional shipping container from Canada. The place always felt forgotten, like it never really caught up with the times. We still had rotary phones in the office until 2019. There were maybe 10 of us on staff, not counting the day laborers. Night crew was just me and Frank. Frank had worked there since the 80s. Kept to himself, chain-smoked constantly, and had this yellowed coffee mug with a cartoon lobster that said, "I pinch back," in cracked lettering. He talked like he was always chewing gravel and barely looked you in the eye. But he knew the docks like the back of his hand. It was around mid-November when things started to go weird. Cold, wet, miserable. Everything smelled like fish guts and rust. The sort of cold that bites deep into your joints. Frank was out sick, so I had the entire port to myself that night. Just me, the rain, and a list of night checks, gate locks, generator status, warehouse doors. Nothing exciting. It was maybe 1:30 in the morning when I first heard it. I was walking along the southern pier, just past Dock 9. That part of the harbor doesn't get much traffic anymore. Most of the cargo operations were moved to the northern end after a storage shed collapsed back in 2014. Anyway, I was walking, half dozing, flashlight bobbing over the wet concrete, when I heard it. Click. Not a metallic click, not something natural like a rat or the drip of water. No. This was a mouth noise. Human. Click. Like the sound you make with your tongue on the roof of your mouth. Deliberate. I stopped. Scanned the dark around me. Nothing. No wind. No voices. Just rain tickling the water and that low hum the sea gives off when the tide's pulling hard. Then again. Click. Closer this time. I called out. "Hello?" Just in case one of the dockworkers had come back for something. No response. That's when I started feeling the shift. You know that sensation like someone's watching you? Like heat on your neck that makes you turn around even when there's nobody there? I backed toward the warehouse wall, flashlight raised. Still nothing. Just the reflection of the beam on wet pavement. I told myself it was an echo. Could be a gull. Hell, maybe I was just overtired. I'd had 3 hours of sleep, max. But as I turned to head back to the main office, I saw something at the end of Dock 12. Just a silhouette. Standing motionless at the edge of the platform. It was too far to make out any detail. No movement. Just standing there, staring at the sea. And then, even through the sound of rain and wind, I heard it again. Click. Right next to my ear. I spun around so fast I almost dropped the flashlight. Nobody. Not a soul behind me. Just empty pier and cold rain. But I heard it. I swear to God, I heard that click no more than 6 inches from my left ear. The kind of sound that feels wet, like breath should have followed it. And I remember something else too, just before I turned, something subtle. A smell. Rotten seaweed and something worse underneath. Like a dead thing dragged from the deep and left in the sun. I backed away, trying to keep my eyes on all directions at once, when my flashlight flickered. Then died completely. That's the thing about Rustwater. The maintenance budget was held together with duct tape and prayer. I'd asked for new equipment for months. Never got it. So now I was standing on a half-lit dock, flashlight dead, with a shadow figure still planted at the edge of Dock 12, and a clicking sound that had somehow moved right up to me without making a damn footstep. I took out my phone for a little light. Battery at 12%. Great. Still, The screen lit up enough to see around. Nobody. The shadow figure? Gone. The pier was empty. I checked again, straight down dock 12, both sides, behind me, even the water. Nothing. I didn't want to overreact. Maybe it was a trick of the rain and lights. Maybe I was just tired. Still, I radioed into base just in case. Station, this is Tom, over. Static. Base, you copy? More static. Then, SHHH, leave. A whisper. I pulled the radio away, heart racing. Pressed the button again. Repeat. Who is this? Nothing. Not even static this time. Just dead air. I booked it back to the main office, the kind of speed walk you do when you don't want to look like you're scared but every cell in your body is screaming run. Got inside, slammed the door, locked it behind me. Now here's the thing. The main office has a wall of old CCTV monitors that cover different parts of the dockyard. Most don't work right, but a few still do. I flicked on the feed for Dock 12. The image was grainy, black and white, maybe 2 seconds behind real time. Nothing there. I let out a breath. Maybe I was just seeing things. But as I turned to sit down, one of the monitors flickered. Dock 12? The feed stuttered, then froze. A figure stood at the very end of the pier, facing the camera. Just standing. Then, over the speaker, loud and clear now, I heard it again. Click. Then the screen went black. I stood there staring at the blank screen for a long minute, waiting for it to come back. Nothing. Just the low hum of the office light and the ticking of that old wall clock Frank always used to smack when it ran slow. My hands were clammy. I couldn't tell if it was the cold or nerves, maybe both. I told myself I had 2 options. I could stay in that office all night and hope to God nothing else happened, or I could go out and check. Technically, if there was someone trespassing, that was my job. Not that they ever trained us for this kind of shit. We were glorified janitors with radios and bolt cutters. Still, my feet didn't move. Not yet. Instead, I turned on the rest of the cameras, every one that still worked, Dock 7, the north fence, both warehouse interiors, the old fish plant building. I even checked the busted thermal cam from '09 that barely showed a heat signature if you stood right in front of it and waved. All clear. But something was bothering me. The figure I'd seen on the Dock 12 feed, it hadn't moved. Not when I turned the camera on, not even when the screen glitched out. It was just still. Too still. Like it wasn't breathing. I zoomed in as far as the feed would allow before it cut out. The face, or whatever passed for a face, was just slightly wrong. Blurred at the edges. Not masked, not obscured. Like a photo left too long in the rain. Before I could dig deeper, my phone vibrated in my pocket. A call. No name. Just unknown number. I stared at it, thumb hovering. It rang again. Then stopped. 2 seconds later, the radio crackled back to life. No voice this time. Just clicking. Not one click. A pattern. Click, click. Click. Pause. Click, click, click. I realized something horrible. Those weren't just mouth noises. They were in a sequence. I dug through the desk and found an old marine signal guide. I don't know why, maybe some part of me was trying to rationalize it. Like it was Morse code or some weird naval communication. It didn't match anything. But while I was flipping through the pages, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. An old map of the port. And Dock 12? It wasn't supposed to exist. At least, not anymore. The map was dated 1998. Back then, Dock 12 had already been condemned after a fire tore through a section of the deck and support beams. It was deemed unsafe and scheduled for demolition. There were notes in red ink. Closed permanently. Structural risk. Removed from official rotation. But I'd been on Dock 12 earlier. It was solid. Normal. Just old. How the hell was it even still there? Before I could start unraveling that, the radio went quiet. Dead quiet. Then a voice. Dry. Low. Male. Right in my ear. Don't turn around. I froze. I hadn't touched the mic. I hadn't pressed anything. And more than anything, I hadn't heard anyone come in. I didn't want to look. I really didn't. But I turned. Slowly. The office was empty. Still locked. But the door leading out to the docks? The one I had definitely, absolutely locked behind me? Wide open. I stood there staring at that open door, rain blowing in sideways, painting streaks across the linoleum floor like veins. I hadn't heard it open. Not a creak. Not a footstep. Nothing. But it was open, and the salt wind coming through was colder than before, so cold it made my eyes water. There was something unnatural about it, like it carried more than air. Like it brought something in. I should have called someone right then. Police, Coast Guard, hell, even Frank. But I didn't. Instead, I walked over and shut the door. And when I did, I saw it. Footprints. Wet ones. Leading into the office. Bare feet. Wide. Toes long. Almost spread out, like fingers. There were 6 of them. 6 toes per foot. The trail ended a few feet from the desk. No sign of exit. Nothing disturbed. Just those wet, glistening prints and a heavy silence. I backed up. My legs hit the chair and I sank into it without meaning to. My hands were shaking. I opened the logbook, desperate for something that would make this make sense. Maybe Frank had seen something. Maybe someone before me had left a note. A warning. Anything. Buried near the back, past pages of water pump checks and shift notes, I found something strange. 2 pages had been torn out. The edges weren't clean. Ripped hastily. Like someone really didn't want what was written there to be found. Below the tear, someone had scrawled something in red pen, one of those faded red Bics we kept in the desk drawer. Just 4 words. Don't follow the clicks. I stared at that sentence for a long time. It looked rushed. Almost angry. Like whoever wrote it did so in a panic. The pressure of the pen was so hard it had carved through the page beneath. I flipped back through older entries, and that's when I noticed something else. Frank had logged every shift for the past 2 years. Every night, meticulously. Time, weather, dock conditions, even rat sightings. But for the past 2 weeks? Nothing. No entries. No initials. Like he hadn't been showing up at all. And yet his coffee mug was still on the shelf. His coat still hanging by the door. His locker closed but not locked. That wasn't like Frank. I grabbed the spare keys and opened it. Inside was a notebook, wrapped in a Ziploc bag. And tucked into the front cover? A photo. A grainy, black and white printout of a dock, Dock 12, taken from the CCTV feed. In the corner of the image, almost out of frame, was that same figure. But this time, it wasn't standing. It was crawling. Back arched. Limbs splayed too wide. Mouth open. And I swear to you, even on that low-res, pixelated photo, I could see its tongue making that clicking sound. The moment I saw that photo, my brain just kind of shut down. There's denial, and then there's that deeper part of you that knows what you're seeing shouldn't exist. That pose, limbs bent backwards, ribs showing through a paper-thin shirt, mouth slack with the tongue out, it was wrong in a way that bypassed logic. Like my body knew before my mind caught up, this isn't human. The tongue looked too long. Thicker at the base, like it wasn't a tongue at all but something else, like a proboscis or some insect mouthpart dressed up to pretend to be human. I flipped open Frank's notebook, hands stiff and clumsy. His handwriting was sharp, all caps, like he was trying to control a tremor. Every page was a mess of notes, timestamps, coordinates. Some of it read like journal entries, others like frantic inventory of something. November 3rd. Saw the figure again. Dock 12? 2:44 a.m. It doesn't blink. It's learning how to stand right. November 7th. No more birds. Seagulls won't come near it. Dogs bark toward the water, won't go near the edge anymore. I left baitfish out. Gone in 3 minutes. No footprints. Just slime. November 9th. It knocked on the maintenance shed door. 4 knocks. Waited. 4 more. Waited. I stayed quiet. It left something in the drain. Smelled like meat. I didn't touch it. And then, November 10th. I made the mistake. I followed the clicks. I thought it was hurt. I thought I could help it. That entry trailed off halfway down the page. No more after that. I looked back at the door. The wet footprints were drying now, but I could still see them if I angled my head just right under the flickering fluorescent light. That thing had been inside. My thoughts kept going back to one sentence in the notebook. It's learning how to stand right. Not stand still. Stand right. Like it was mimicking us. Practicing. Pretending to be one of us. I needed to know what was really out there. If it was a person, some lunatic, someone squatting near the docks playing mind games, fine. I could handle that. I had handled worse. But if it was what Frank's notes were hinting at, I had to know. I grabbed the high-beam flood flashlight from the storage closet, brand new, fully charged, and a box cutter from the tool drawer. Not a weapon, really, but it made me feel less alone. Then I stepped back out into the night. The rain had thinned into a mist, just enough to blur the edges of the world. I walked past the warehouse, past the old fish plant, back toward Dock 12. Each step I took felt heavier. And just as I reached the split where the concrete pier meets the wooden boards of Dock 12, I heard it again. Click. But this time, there were 2 of them. Click. Click, click. From opposite sides. Like a conversation. My breath caught. Not from exertion, not even from fear exactly, but from something deeper, like my body was trying to convince me to stop moving altogether. To freeze and not be noticed. The first click had come from my left, down the pier, maybe 20 feet ahead. The second? Farther away, on the rocks behind the shipping containers that lined the edge of the lot. Maybe near the old tidal inlet that hadn't been dredged in years. I killed the flashlight. Dumb move maybe, but I didn't want to announce myself any more than I already had. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds, and the mist off the sea made everything soft, blurry, like I was moving inside a dream I couldn't wake up from. But the clicks didn't come again. What I heard instead was breathing. Not heavy. Not panicked. Just close. Rhythmic. Wet. Like something with a mouth not quite right. I edged forward, one step at a time, onto Dock 12. The wood beneath my boots was swollen and soft. A couple boards creaked louder than I liked. That's when I noticed something that didn't belong. Rope. Tied along the edge like a guide, looped through old mooring cleats, but newer than anything else on the dock. Not government issue either, this looked like climbing rope. Civilian stuff. I followed it with the beam of my flashlight, flicking it back on. The rope led down to the lower catwalk near the seawall, a maintenance access nobody used anymore. It ended at a metal ring driven into the dock, and from that point on, drag marks. Not footprints. Not boots. Something had been pulled. I leaned over the edge of the dock and swept the light down toward the water. And there, resting on the concrete shelf just above the tide line, was a shoe. A black work boot. Still laced. And next to it, half submerged in the brine, was a radio. The same kind we carried on our belts. "Frank?" I said aloud, barely meaning to. And then, splash. Just beneath me. I yanked the flashlight up, sweeping the surface, catching nothing but the ripple of water returning to stillness. No fish. No wind. Just movement that shouldn't be there. I wanted to back away, to leave, to pretend I hadn't seen any of it. But then I heard something new. Not a click. Not breathing. Words. Low. Bubbling up from below the dock, like they were being spoken through the water. "Come see it." A voice, feminine. Soft. Familiar, almost. "Tom, come see what I found." My blood turned to ice. Nobody knew I was out here. Nobody knew my name. I backed up fast, almost slipping on the wet planks. That's when I saw something rise from the edge of the dock. A hand? Pale. Boneless. Like the skin was being worn over something else. It gripped the edge of the pier and pulled up, revealing a face. My flashlight caught it just long enough. It looked like a woman. Sort of. But the eyes were too wide. No lashes. No whites. Just big, round, black discs like you'd see on a deep-sea fish. And the mouth didn't smile. It opened. Far too wide. And clicked. Once. Twice. Then whispered, "You followed it." I didn't run. I bolted. Like something primitive in me took over. I turned so fast I don't remember the first few steps. I was just suddenly away from the edge, sprinting down the length of Dock 12 like my life depended on it. And maybe it did. Behind me, I heard the sound of wood groaning. Something heavy pulling itself up. Wet skin slapping against soaked planks. And clicks. Louder now. Not just one. Not just two. 3. Maybe 4 of them. From different directions. They were surrounding the dock. I didn't look back. Not until I hit the concrete of the main pier and nearly wiped out turning the corner toward the floodlights by the warehouse. Only then did I risk glancing over my shoulder. Dock 12 was empty. Clean. Like it always had been. But the rope was gone. So was the boot. And the radio. The only thing left was a wet smear trailing off the edge, slowly being washed away by the incoming tide. I stumbled into the warehouse. Slammed the door. Locked it. The air inside felt stale, like it hadn't been moved in weeks. My lungs were burning. My hands were numb. But what hit me hardest was the silence. Too quiet. I should have heard the hum of the breaker box, the creak of the old HVAC vents, even the scuttle of rats. But it was dead still. I moved deeper into the storage area, flashlight cutting across rows of abandoned crates and shipping pallets covered in tarps. And then I saw it. On the far wall, next to the emergency ladder that led up to the catwalk, something had been scratched into the paint. Not written. Scratched. With fingernails or something harder. Dozens of markings, all circling a phrase repeated over and over. Dock 12 never sleeps. Dock 12 never sleeps. Dock 12 never sleeps. Below it, in smaller letters, fresh, newer than the rest. It wore Frank's face. That stopped me cold. Because in all the panic, I hadn't really thought about Frank. Not in a real way. But someone, something, had his boot. His radio. And if it could copy voices. I reached for my own radio. It had a red blinking light. I hadn't noticed it before. That meant there was a message. I clicked it on. And I heard my voice. "Don't turn around." I dropped it. Didn't even realize I was crying until I heard the drops hit the concrete. Then something else came through the static. A voice. Not mine. Frank's. Softer than I remembered. But undeniably him. "Tom, help me." Then the unmistakable sound of clicking. Slow. Steady. Then closer. Right outside the warehouse door. I stood frozen, staring at that warehouse door like it might burst open any second. The kind of frozen where your body wants to run, but your legs just won't get the message. Click. Click, click. Then, silence. I edged toward the wall and shut off my flashlight again. If it was using sound, maybe it couldn't see me. Maybe it hunted like something from the deep, movement, vibration. God knows the thing didn't move like any person should. The warehouse had a second exit. Emergency hatch on the upper level, above the catwalk. I'd never used it before, but it opened onto a maintenance ladder that dropped to the rear alley behind the grain silos. I climbed fast, taking 2 rungs at a time, my breath echoing off the metal walls. Below me, I heard the warehouse door creak open. No slamming. No force. Just the soft squeal of hinges, and then wet footsteps. Not boots. Not shoes. Bare feet, slapping softly against the concrete floor. I reached the hatch and pushed it open. The night air rushed in, cold, wet, and thick with that smell again. Like sea rot and iron. The ladder shook under my weight as I scrambled down, slipping once and scraping my hand open on the rusted rung. When I hit the ground, I didn't look back. I sprinted behind the grain silos, through the narrow corridor that led to the back fencing near the dry dock. My plan was half-baked at best. Get to the marina office down the road, maybe find a phone that wasn't haunted by whatever the hell was mimicking voices. Call for help. Something. But as I rounded the corner of the last silo, I stopped dead. There was a boat. Not in the water. On land. A fishing trawler, old, stripped for parts, dry-docked years ago. And carved across its bow, in sloppy, jagged letters. "It's inside the skin." The words weren't painted. They weren't burned. They were carved. I turned to run again and nearly collided with a figure standing in the dark. I reeled back, raising the flashlight, hands shaking. Frank. Or what looked like Frank. Soaked. Shirt clinging to him. Face pale, eyes glassy. Lips parted just a bit too wide, like someone unsure how to shape a smile. "Tom," he said. But it didn't sound right. The voice was close, sure, but it lagged, like a bad recording. And there was no breath behind it. No warmth. Just the sound of a voice copied. "Help me," it said again. Same tone. Same exact cadence as the radio. Like it hit play on a tape. Then it reached for me. Its arm moved too far, too fast. Like the bones were bending the wrong way. I ran. I didn't think. I just turned and tore down the access road toward the main gate, lungs burning, legs pumping. I could hear it behind me, now, not just one set of steps. Multiple. All moving fast. But they didn't sound like feet. They sounded like hands. I ran until I couldn't feel my legs. The gatehouse was maybe a quarter-mile down the access road. In daylight it was nothing, a short jog. But in the dark, with those things behind me, it felt like running through molasses, each breath scraping down my throat like glass shards. I didn't dare look back. But I could hear them. That clicking, always clicking, overlapping now, some fast, some slow, some so close I swore I felt breath on the back of my neck. And beneath the clicks, I swear to you, they were trying to talk. Not full words. Just syllables. Sound shaped like speech. Over and over. My name. The gatehouse was lit up when I got there. Barely. One flickering bulb in the ceiling and the greenish glow of the emergency panel inside. I crashed through the door, slamming it shut behind me, throwing the bolt, then dragging the steel supply cabinet in front of it just for good measure. I collapsed into the chair, chest heaving, blood pounding in my ears. For a second, I thought I'd made it. That I was safe. Then the monitors blinked on. I didn't touch anything. Didn't power the system. Didn't flip the breaker. They just came to life. All 7 screens. Each one showing a different dock camera. And in every single one, something was standing at the edge of the frame. Not always in focus. Not always fully visible. But there. Crawling. Standing. Clicking. Watching. Then the feeds began to switch. Fast. One by one, cycling through views of the port, the warehouses, the loading zones, and then back to Dock 12. Always Dock 12. The final screen froze there. The pier was empty. But then, something rose out of the water. Not climbed. Rose. Like it didn't need to breathe. Like it didn't care what gravity was. It hoisted itself onto the dock with arms that stretched too long, skin sagging and slick, a face like wax melting off a mannequin. And it wasn't alone. More figures pulled themselves from the sea. 4, 5, 6. All different. All wrong. Each of them dragging something behind them. A boot. A coat. A face. Frank's face. Another screen flickered on. It showed me. Sitting in the gatehouse. Live feed. From the corner ceiling cam I'd forgotten was even there. Only, I wasn't alone in the image. Something was behind me. Standing in the shadows. Long, thin. Grinning. Its hand rested gently on my shoulder. Right as I turned to look. Bang. The door shook. Hard. Once. Twice. Then came the clicking. All around. And the voice that followed. Not from outside. Not from the radio. But from behind me, whispering right into my ear. You shouldn't have looked back. I didn't turn. I couldn't. My whole body locked up, like my nerves just stopped sending messages. Every instinct screamed to move, to run, fight something. But I sat frozen in that gatehouse chair, feeling the pressure of something behind me that wasn't supposed to exist. The whisper lingered. Breathless. Cold. Not on my skin, exactly, but in it. Like it had sunk through the outer layer, and was vibrating inside my nerves. You shouldn't have looked back. It repeated the phrase, but this time, it was my voice. Perfect mimic. Down to the breathe between words. And then, I felt a finger. Just one. Long, damp. Tracing the line from the top of my spine down to the middle of my back. Light, almost playful. Like it was learning where everything was. I snapped out of it. Threw myself forward, crashing into the desk. Spun around, flashlight up. Nothing. The room was empty. The monitors were off. No power. No hum. No signs anyone, or anything, had ever been there with me. I stood there panting, flashlight beam bouncing wildly off the metal walls. I was alone. Or I looked alone. But I didn't feel it. I don't remember getting back to my truck. I just remember the dawn breaking through the fog as I pulled out of the lot, the rain thinning to mist. Everything behind me growing smaller. Quieter. Less real. The company said Frank quit. No investigation. No report. Dock 12 was fenced off the next week, then removed entirely from the records, just like the old map said it should have been years ago. Nobody talks about it now. Not the workers. Not the union guys. Not even the harbor master. But I never went back. I didn't even collect my last check? Some nights, usually the ones when it rains and the wind's coming in off the Atlantic, I still hear it. That clicking? From the corners of empty rooms. From behind shower curtains. Through my phone speakers when they shouldn't be on. Always the same pattern. Sometimes it's only one. Sometimes more. But worst of all, once, just once, I heard my own voice on the other end. And it said, I'm almost back to shore.